Welcome to Fearless and Flawed. My name is Sarah Ferrer. I am a small business consultant, and I am here today with my fearless and really not that flawed co-host, Serena. Serena, go ahead and intro yourself, girl.
Hi, I'm Serena. I'm based in the UK. I'm the owner and managing director of Conceptive Limited because I'm English. And we're joined today by another fearless woman called Colleen Norris, and she's a chiropractor and she specializes in a very special chiropractic specialty, the no crack technique. Now, I'm sure she will go into that and tell you more about it. I'm fascinated. I'm not too keen on the cracking of bones, so it's all good to hear that there's a no crack technique. And let's start.
Thank you so much.
Yes, so happy to have you. So just tell us a little bit about, before we dive into the no crack technique, and I know that you're very big into healing and energy, and there's so much meat to your story, but just kind of get us into the early days of how did even the chiropractic world become something that you were interested in or dipped your toe in? What does that look like?
Yeah. So first of all, thank you so much for having me here. I'm honored to be here, and just really excited to have this great conversation with you both. So my chiropractic journey started in a unique way. I was in undergrad, and I was at the University of Toledo in Ohio. I grew up in Ohio. And I always thought I wanted to be a physical therapist. I was like, in my head, I'm like, yep, I'm going to PT school. I had done all these volunteer hours. I went to a school specifically that had a physical therapy program. And then lo and behold, I apply my sophomore year. In my mind, there was no other option than I was getting in, even though like there were 22 spots and I think 100 or 150 people applied, and I got rejected.
Hmm.
And so it was at the time devastating, horrific. I thought my world was literally over, crashing down. And I was like, okay, I'm just going to finish my bachelor's, get my bachelor's in exercise science, and just kind of regroup. So I graduate with my bachelor's, and at the time I'm waitressing, I'm working in a gym, and I'm just kind of like low key kind of depressed. Like, what am I doing with my life? Like, seriously, like I can't just be a waitress and work in a gym. And this is gonna sound crazy, maybe not, but I literally
We
woke
like
up.
crazy. We like crazy.
Okay, good. Okay, good. Okay. So I woke up one day, and it was literally, I just had this knowing I have to go to chiropractic school.
Mm.
Now, what is very bizarre about this is that I had never been to a chiropractor. I didn't know any chiropractors. I literally barely knew anything about chiropractic, and I just was like, I've got to go to chiropractic school. So this is like 19 late 90s, and so I go to the computer lab at the college, and I'm like, 'cause we don't have computers, I'm, like, typing in chiropractic schools, and I find this chiropractic school in Atlanta, near Atlanta, called Life University, and within 4 months of that, I was moving from Ohio to Georgia, starting chiropractic school. Now, I didn't even get adjusted. My first adjustment was not till I was in school, and I was like, "Oh my god, this is incredible. I'm so glad I did this," but
So when you
that's how
say
it all started.
adjustment, do you mean a crack?
Yes.
Oh,
Originally, yes, in the first decade of my career was the traditional cracking kind of chiropractic, but in the early days, yeah, it was all cracking. So that was my first adjustment, but that's how I kinda got into it. It was like a divine intervention, if you
Mm.
will.
Mhm, mhm. Wow. And so like when you're there, and I know again, as someone who I've been to a chiropractor once, but and again, I think that this is really important to address too. When I told kind of friends and family I was going, there was a bit of like, oh, do you know what you're getting yourself into? There's a bit of that like negative kind of and again, like let's face it head on, and my experience was neither good nor bad. It was just like it wasn't the right fit for me, but there was a bit of that like, "Oh, you're going to oh, you should see a real doctor." You
Yes.
see so, but
Yes.
yet at the same time, I thought, "But there's a lot of chiropractors out there, and there's a lot of success stories." So, how do you when you were going in school, or even deciding to go to school, how do you navigate those negative, quite frankly, conceptions of what a chiropractor is. How do you navigate that? How do you say, yeah, but I'm not that type of chiropractor, or this is the misconception?
Right, and I love that you asked this because, when I was in undergrad, my mentor leading up to graduating with my, bachelor's, she had a very strong response when I told her I was going to chiropractic school. It was very similar. It was like, "Ooh, oof, I'm really sorry. You're about to have a lifetime of, like, people telling you you're a quack and, like, this and that," and it was just so clear in me that this is what I was meant to do. It honestly, it didn't phase me at all. Um, and so I kind of got to the place where I'm like, "You know what? If someone's not open to it, I don't have to change their mind, and what they think about me or what they think about what I'm doing is actually none of my business. That's a reflection of them." So if they're scared or they don't understand something or whatever, it's okay if they're open and they wanna ask me questions. I'm always open to having a conversation, but if someone's not open-minded, then it's not my job to open their mind.
I
So
love
that's
that.
kinda how I dealt with that.
Let's say, and this is a great opportunity to say, okay, so someone comes in and they are open minded, right?
Yeah.
Let's say it says, hey, like me, I'm walking through the doors. This is what I've heard my family say or friends say. How how do you now kind of take that open mind, and what's kind of your intro into what you do and the benefits of it, of chiropractic? Chiropractor medicine?
Chiropractic. Chiropractic.
Chiropractic?
Yeah. 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 So with now the kind of chiropractic I am doing, like I mentioned, my first decade was in the traditional cracking chiropractic. I left chiropractic for about 8 years because I had a spiritual awakening that was like related to like childhood trauma coming up and all of this stuff. So I took kind of a hiatus to really understand more about how trauma affects your health and your nervous system. And I just kind of was like, you know what? The kind of chiropractic I'm doing, I don't feel like I'm able to help at the level I want to help people. So I took a step back and then I
Mm.
got back into chiropractic because of this technique, because I found this technique and I was like, okay, this technique not just addresses the physical, but addresses like mentally, emotionally, spiritually when we're in these when we're quote unquote out of alignment, so to speak, the impact these things can have and how those impacts can stem all the way back to unresolved childhood trauma. And that's really like where my specialty is like I because of all the healing I've done with myself and all the things I've been trained in and all the things I've learned, I have a very unique understanding of how deeply abuse, sexual abuse, physical abuse, neglect, emotional abuse, going through divorce, going through a loss of a significant, parent, and even kinda like the smaller T traumas, like, bullying or having, like, a sibling that's always critical or, really harsh to you. Like, all of these ways, all of these experiences that shape us live in our nervous system. And when they're not addressed and when we don't have the tools and resources to be able to process them, to be able to kinda let them go, we hold them and our body holds them. And this energy does not magically disappear because we've forgotten about it or because 10 years have passed. It shapes how our body processes energy and information. So if we have these unresolved traumas, our body is constantly in this place of hypervigilance, in this um, fight or flight of like, "Ooh, let me always be on the defensive, let me always prepare for the worst case scenario to happen." And that creates your body's intention 24/7. You can do all the massages in the world. You can do all the tradition of chiropractic, acupuncture, all of the things, but if you don't get to the root of that and help your body start to get into a place where it can process and heal from those traumas, it's the tension's gonna be there forever, and that's gonna lead to health issues, to chronic pains, migraines, neck issues, back issues, like autoimmune issues, all kinds of things.
Wow.
So,
So this is
so can I ask? Sorry,
well, go for it, Trina.
I'd love to know what actually is the no crack practice. How do you go around? What is that? What do you do? How do you help these people?
Yeah. Yeah. So, when someone first comes in, I do a very thorough history. Like I just finished up with a new patient, and I like to like a very holistic approach. Okay, what are the things you're experiencing now? You know, the details about that, when they started, and all that stuff. But also, what have you experienced in your life? And I feel like really this is the missing piece in medicine, in healthcare, is we're taking these like, oh, here's this one symptom, and let me fix this one symptom. But oftentimes, like for the person that I was just working with, they have a chronic a history of neck and shoulder issues, and their body's always tense, and that stems from childhood trauma. And so the nervous system is consistently in this place of fight or flight. So after I get all that information, I have them go on the table, and I'm doing a check of like really what state their nervous system is in. And the analysis I use has to do with the feet. So I go through a series of things where I'm having them turn their head and do this thing, and I'm seeing what's happening with their feet and legs. And from that, I gather which pattern of tension their nervous system is in right now. And from that pattern of tension, I go to a very specific location. It's either going to be in the neck, up at the occiput, or down in the sacrum, specifically because there's attachments there that can impact the system globally. I'm not looking to take one bone and crack it back into place. I'm looking at where can I put the least amount of force and make the biggest change in the system. And so when I make that contact, it's like a contact like this.
Mm.
That's it. And with the contact that I'm making, I'm activating the body's innate healing ability. And so it's like I'm gathering that energy, and then when I make the contact with my other, like I'll go like this right with my thumb, it then starts the unwinding. So the body's innate intelligence that is more powerful than any medication, anything, more powerful than me, then is unleashed in the body and goes through and unwinds the tension and makes the adjustments in the nervous system, reorganizes how everything is functioning. So it's in a place of what's called the parasympathetic, where it can heal, where you can heal and grow and evolve and feel safe. Does that make sense?
It almost sounds like when I used to work at a spa, it almost sounds like almost an element of Reiki when it comes to like energy movement or shifting of energy. I'm not sure. Are you familiar with Reiki at all?
I am. And
Is
it's
it is it is it kind of so because we you talk
no.
so just to kind of describe when I hear because I'm a very
Yeah.
technical person, so when I hear like movement and shifting, it's hard for me to almost visualize or to understand completely, but by opening up these maybe these stuck channels, just to dabble a little bit more into that so I can how
Yeah.
feel, what does it look like to the
How does
client?
it feel for somebody? Like,
Yeah.
Yeah.
do
Yeah.
they
Yeah.
jump off the table and like, right, this is awesome. I'm loving this. This is what I want to
Yeah.
know.
So, obviously that's always the intention. That's not always what happens, but just a little like, and first of all, I love Reiki. I receive Reiki, so it's not like it's just different because this is specifically about the nervous system. We're using the nervous system, and we're using what we call the body's innate intelligence. That's just a fancy word for its natural healing ability that the body can't access when it's in that fight or flight. It can't access its natural healing ability. So we're getting it into a state, we're shifting the nervous system into a state where it can access that healing energy. And then that healing energy goes all throughout the body and does the unwinding. So what you'll notice when someone's on the table, notice their breath starts to deepen. And all of a sudden, where they were breathing really shallow and it was like they couldn't take a deep breath, all of a sudden the breath can go all the way up from like the tailbone up to the neck. And what that does in the system is create this sense of safety, of I am okay, I am safe. And then the defenses drop and the system relaxes. And so people commonly will feel very peaceful, very calm, very like in their body, very grounded. And they'll be like, oh,
As you're speaking, I'm actually breathing and sitting up straighter, and I'm feeling this.
yes, yes.
And
Yes.
I'm in a different country, so, I mean, this is cool.
Ye yeah. It was
So could you tell more about could you, speak more to the divine intervention that led you from the crack chiropracticness of
Technique.
that technique, thank you,
Yeah. Uh-huh.
um, to the no crack, to this more, um, spiritual alignment. Is spiritual alignment, is that a good phrase or
It's like I feel like it's like an alignment, and I'm not personally looking to align anyone. That's not my intention, which some traditional chiropractors are like that. Again, that's how I used to. It was like, "Ooh, let me make sure everything's lined up here, over each other." That's not my intention here. My intention is to help the nervous system get into a state where it has the largest amount of its own healing ability, and then just trusting that ability that goes and it does its own alignment. It knows how to align things. It knows how to reorganize things. It knows what needs to be healed. Knows what need to be like let go of. Like it's this intelligence that like we don't consciously have access to.
so do people have to tell you their deepest, darkest moments? Is that part of it? Do they
Um
have to share?
They don't have to tell me, because I am very intuitive, so it is easy for me to pick up on. I don't always have to know the details of what someone's gone through or what they've experienced to I'm also an empath, right, to be able to feel what they're feeling even if I don't know all the details. People do commonly say, I'm telling you something I've never told this to anyone in my life before," which I feel is always an incredible honor,
Yeah.
to be able to witness that, but they don't have I'm definitely not making someone tell me anything. Um, but really, like, my journey from going, like, traditional to the no crack is, like I mentioned, I went through a spiritual awakening, so in 2010, I started getting severe anxiety and panic attacks, and I was like, "I have no idea what's happening to me." It was very, very stressful, and so I found this holistic medical doctor at the time that did energy work, and so after working with him for, I think it was like 2 months, I had I ended up recovering memories of childhood trauma that I didn't even know happened. And so there was, like, that point for me was, like, it was like that life-shattering kind of thing where, "Oh, wow, you think these things happened and it was, like, this way," and then it would just, like, all shattered. So, from that point, I was constantly looking for so basically it was like PTSD. I was having experiencing PTSD from those traumas, and so it was this severe anxiety. I had times where I couldn't leave my house. I couldn't drive a car. Um, it would show up in all like, at its worst, I sometimes it would be triggered if I was standing in line at the grocery store and the line wasn't moving, and if there was any even feeling of, like, I'm stuck in something, I would have a panic attack. So, again, that was at its worst, and so, through the years, I learned a lot of different techniques, and I did a lot of different healing, and then in 2022, I went through a divorce, and that triggered the deepest level of, anxiety and depression and just, having everything that I had relied on for safety and security, was gone. I moved out of the house I had lived in, for the past 15 years. Um, my ex is a chiropractor as well, so we had a business together. So he bought me out of the business, he bought me out of the house. So all the things that I relied on for safety and security were gone. And so it was like kind of like rocked me to my core of like can I do this? Like, when we get in these situations where it's like we have this kind of big life altering moment or series of moments, and we're like, can I do this? Can I support myself? Do I have what it takes to do what I like think I can do? And so my lowest point was in May of 2022, where I actually went to a voluntary crisis center, and I had two divine interventions in there, and one of them was really from the one of the other people in the crisis center. It wasn't from an employee, it was from someone in there on for his own struggles. And we had this super deep conversation one morning, and I was just telling him about, like, oh, things I have gone through and what I was feeling, and I just said, I feel like I'm worthless.
Mm.
And yeah, he stopped what he was doing, and it was like, again, this is someone I would have never met in my regular life, ever. It's someone that I literally knew for 2 days, and I was, like, just, like, bearing my heart and my soul, and he looked at me, and it was like he pierced through me and all the trauma, and he just said, "Colleen, you're worth it." And
Love
in
that.
that moment, something
Yeah.
changed in me,
Mm.
and I left the crisis center still having severe anxiety, still having heart palpitations, all the things I went in there with. But what I did have that I didn't walk in with was my worth. Even though I had no home, I had no business, I had no job, I had nothing, nothing. But I decided to believe I was worthy anyways. And it was from there I've built everything that I've created today.
Snap it up. Snap it up. Let me we gotta snap it up to avoid me just crying. Oh, God.
Yeah,
Get
me
it out, baby.
too.
Wow.
Incredible.
That
It's like a stranger
Yeah. A
to
stranger.
give you a hug, pretty much.
He
Wow.
like hugged my soul.
See, everyone just needs to be nicer to people.
Yeah.
Just in general.
But what that meant, I mean, that was a real trajectory shift, right? Like you said, and I think that this is important to note, because many times we hear kind of the Instagram stories where it's like, I went in one way and I came out fabulous. And it feels, and then those of us who might be feeling down or having a season of just depression go, oh God, there must be something wrong with me because I still feel the same way when I leave the building. But to your point, you said, wait, wait, wait. I was still experiencing some of those symptoms, but I left with something bigger and better, which was worth. So it doesn't mean I was fixed or cured.
Oh, I was far from it.
Right. So that's
Was
very
far from it.
encouraging, though, to hear that it was still a journey, but it feels like what you gained allowed you then to build in a deeper, more meaningful way because your
Yeah.
foundation was not broken anymore. There was strength in it.
Exactly, and I realized that everything that I had created in the past fell apart because it was built on the foundation that I was not worthy, and that it would constantly be reaffirmed of my worthlessness because
Mm,
that's the foundation I built it from.
wow. That let's just take a step back because I'm digesting. I know I could see it in street. We're like, so you can keep running the race, but if you are running the race scared and feeling like you're drowning or slipping, how can you ever get ahead? So it's that mental emotional shift, which then allowed you to create shifts in your job, your career, your family. You're like, okay, I'm all ears. This is pretty
Building
cool.
Yes.
a house in the sand. Move
Yes.
it to the solid
Exactly,
ground.
exactly.
You needed to
So
shift it.
Wow.
yeah, so from that place, okay, so when I left the crisis center in May of 2022, I did a solid year of EMDR therapy, and I did a couple other things too,
Okay,
but I
what is EMDR therapy?
okay, yeah, so EMDR, um, oh gosh, let's see, eye movement desensitization something. It's a form, it's
We'll
like
put
a
it on the
therapy.
website. We'll look it up.
Okay, perfect. So it's a form of therapy where you have your it allows your brain to process traumatic events with either a sound alternating at the same time or buzzers. You're holding on to things and they're buzzing, and so it shifts how your body is able to process what's happened in the past. done with a therapist in when you're reliving a memory. So you're reliving a memory and it's in a contained environment. But basically it's like I did that. So again, it wasn't like I left the crisis center and was like, "Oh, hey, like awesome, like let's go." I did a solid year of like building that foundation and really working on um what I wanted to create. And so it was then the end of last August. So August of 2023 is when I opened my chiropractic office, um, where I am right now. And so I've been in business, right? I've been in this business for just over a year. Um, and I'm just about to cross. Well, if we go from January of this year till now, I'm just about to cross 6 figures.
Awesome.
Put in the work, build the foundation from a place of like, I am worthy of this. I am worthy of all of the things, and I'm doing things that I thought my former self thought were not possible.
So
Mm.
how do you now I mean, the road is never smooth. You're going to come across bumps in the road. You're going to hit those
Totally.
potholes. Um, and you're gonna have those down days. How do you not then let it take you back to a place of I'm not worth it?
Yeah, and again, it's not to say that I don't ever have that feeling. I would be lying if I was like, "Oh, I've never felt that again since that day," that's not true. But what I can do is I
Wouldn't have
recognize it.
believed you.
Right, exactly, right? It's like you're lying. I recognize it and I remember the path of what happens in my life when I believe it, and I never wanna go back to that. And so it's really a commitment to myself of just saying, maybe I'll hang out in that energy and I'll believe it for like, an hour or maybe 24 hours or 48 hours. And then I'm like, all right, not doing that because I already know the end result. I know what my life looks like in that trajectory. And I won't ever go back there again. I won't ever go back there again.
Do you feel like this is kind of the balance of life where now that you are aware, right? You had to go through that journey, that
Yeah.
rough emotional journey, but that
Yeah.
journey led you in your career to a point where would it be correct to say you feel more fulfilled in your career because of the
Oh,
journey
yeah.
you've been on?
Absolutely, and I wouldn't be able to hold the space that I can hold for people or, to have the conversations I have with people if I hadn't gone through everything I've gone through myself, like, because I've gone to them, like, the deepest, scariest, darkest parts of myself, I've sat with that. And I've sat with how uncomfortable that is, and so then when someone else is in that place, I'm not afraid to be there. I'm not afraid to hold the space for someone, when they're in that place in their own journey. I don't have to jump in the cave with them. I don't have to go in there with them and try to rescue or fix them, but I can hold the space for them to be there, and I don't need to, like, leave.
Right.
So
Right.
Yeah.
so just on a girly kind of thing here, you said that you were an empath.
Uh-huh.
So are you not are you not concerned that you I mean, how do you feel at the end of the day? Do you feel incredible when you leave work? Or do you feel the
Yeah.
weight of the people that have come to you? Are you absorbing it? Or is
No,
it
I don't
something
absorb it.
I mean, you said about saving space. I love that analogy. I love that concept.
Yeah, and this is something that I really learned, um, through the journey, right, is because I have taken on in the past, I have taken on people's stuff, and I have, it like, that is definitely a pattern of from the past of like, "Oh, let me take your pain for you, let me help you," right, which is, well-intentioned and all, but at the end of the day, it's actually not gonna do anything to help that other person because you can't do anything with that pain other than just carry it, and then it becomes a burden for you, and it's not even yours. So I've learned to have a lot better energetic boundaries where I can still feel where someone is, again, but I'm not jumping in the pot with them. I'm not, swirling around in the energy. I'm like, okay, I can feel where you are. I don't have to take on anything because it's not mine, but I can be a witness. I can hold space for you. And that's, I think, that's been a journey of learning that for sure.
Is
But
that
yeah, generally, I feel great. Like, generally, like, like, people have said that. I was like, "Oh my gosh," it's like all this. I'm like, "I freaking love this," because I have people come to me that are like, "Oh my god, no one's ever connected these dots with me before. Like, I never even realized this was connected to this, or this is happening and this is causing this. Like, I had no clue." And so it's like that just fuels me and that just feeds me of like I know that I look at things in very different ways than most other health providers. And I think
Mhm.
that's something that's unique that sets me apart. And I love it.
That's what I was gonna ask, like, that's your kind of your niche. That's what sets you apart is that,
Yeah.
yes, you can with this no crack technique, you've done the traditional, now you do the no crack, but you bring this layer of healing, understanding, of creating space. It kind of feels like you're the best of many professionals in one, right? You're almost like well, it sounds like the fact that you have mentioned earlier that people could say, "I've never told this to someone." That sounds like a therapist. Yeah.
Absolutely. Right. Right. And I am also very clear that I am not a therapist. I am right. I'm not a therapist. Um, and I just know as a human being, I know how to hold space.
Right. But and again, it's like, and I love that she's not a therapist, so we don't want to put that out there as, but it's like when you go to, let's say you go get your annual physical and someone actually looks you in the eyes and says, "How are you doing?" And you go, "Oh, I thought you were just gonna hit my knees and check my ear."
Yeah.
There's that human connection as
Yes.
well as the medical connection.
I never have
Exactly.
any idea how to answer that question. How are you doing?
I know
Fine.
that is a loaded question, right?
It is.
Do they
Y
really want to know?
You're right.
Well, how would like, it sounds also like with your what you've been in business now for a year, you said? A little bit over a year?
Yeah, just a little bit over a year. Mhm.
How does that like with is word of mouth a very is that the big referral type of system? Because I can imagine if I've hopped off out of your bed and, I feel better, that's one of the greatest testimonials of, like, how one feels. So how do people find you? How is it like a
Mm.
network of just people telling their friends? Is it like your website is inundated? How do people find you with this beautiful technique and this kind of this
Um,
specialty that sets you apart?
yeah, so definitely one way is referrals, which is always yeah, I feel like it's the greatest compliment when someone trusts, your services and shares them with friends and family. Also networking, I do a lot of networking, I'm in a couple networking groups, so just getting my name out there, building relationships, and then speaking. So, speaking, I'll do workshops, I'll do classes, but also, like, health expos, wellness expos, things like that, like, there's a health and wellness expo in November 16th and 17th in, like, Central Mass that's called the Natural Living Expo. It's the largest holistic expo in New England. So I have a booth there. So I'm offering treatments, many treatments at my booth. I'm doing a talk about healing anxiety naturally, how to build resilience. So it's like just getting myself out there, just speaking, social media too. I do a lot of posting on social media. And then there's another network chiropractor, Dr. Sharina, who's actually in Orlando. She has a very large Instagram following, and she has created a directory because she's had so many people all over the world that follow her page. So I'm in her directory. So people can like say, "Oh my gosh, I want this kind of chiropractic." So I actually get a number of people that find me from her directory that are local.
You are just out there, girl. I
You
like, you were just
Yeah.
out there. Like, you were
Yeah.
you're checking off all the boxes of leaving no stone unturned, and I love that because you have to show up, and you're showing up.
you have to show up. You have to show up. And I just, every time I go into like a doubt or like a fear or worry, I just say, you know what? I have not come this far to come this far. I've
Mm.
got through too much stuff. I've faced too many demons, and to stop now, I can't, I will not stop.
Tiger. You're
Ex-
fierce.
yeah. Yeah. I feel like you have to have, right? When you have your own business, it's not going to be rainbows and sunshines and all the time. You have to have a level of fierceness to
Mm,
move through the challenges, right?
mm. What would you tell your younger self? Knowing your story, knowing your journey, and knowing where you are right now, what would you in this moment say to Colleen who, before she entered, any type of treatment or before any of these
Mm,
big T traumas were unearthed, what would you say to
yeah.
her?
Hmm. I would say you're worthy.
Mm,
Then would you still be here?
right, right.
Would you have still made your journey? Maybe you needed these things.
That's true.
Oh, absolutely. And I, because one of the biggest traumatic events was my dad passing when I was 3 unexpectedly. And so, and then the trajectory that was from, of the trauma that then, happened with that change. Um in one of the healings, I've gone back and and it's come to me kind of like in a spiritual message of like, whether it was from my dad or whatever, I'm not sure, but it was like, if you hadn't gone through all of that, you wouldn't be where you are right now. You wouldn't be helping people in the way you are right now. And so this is part of your mission. This is part of why you're here. And that my dad, it wasn't in the cards for my dad to be, there and protect me and be the, the dad that I thought he should be in my life, seeing my kids and all of that. It was like, this was the story in this life. And the more that I was able to come to a place of accepting that, instead
Mm.
of just being that, like, gosh, for decades, that was like the cross I was going to die on, is how that should have never happened. And that created so much pain and suffering in my life. But coming to
Yeah.
a place of accepting that now, it's changed everything.
It's reminiscent of, I heard this phrase on a Netflix show recently where, an older guy had lost his son and he was of course
Mhm.
down and the world was against him. And then he kind of had that shift and someone said, "What changed?" And he said, "I finally realized that I was just gonna play with the cards I was dealt." Is
Yes.
that is that kind of,
Yes.
instead of being mad that these are the cards, instead of resisting it, wanting to change the cards
Yes.
back in, I was gonna play the hand that I was dealt.
Yes.
And you got to that point. Many people never do. They live a whole life resentful, angry, blaming. You said this is just, wow, that's
It was
powerful.
that's easy to do though, because, if you look at it, right? Like, I was 3 years old, you know what I mean? Like, it was just, it was so easy to get caught up in. That should have never happened.
You have no idea what life would be like any other way.
Hey, right. Right. But I can't change that. And the more that I dwell on that should have never happened, the more pain and suffering I have. And I just carry that with me everywhere I go. And I just got to a point where I was like, I'm no longer willing to torture myself like this anymore.
But isn't that the whole thing about the whole Instagram lifestyle? The whole we only show the glossy side of ourselves, the happy side, we post pictures
Yeah.
of our family on vacation. Don't worry about the argument we just had or the fact that we haven't spoken for 2 weeks or whatever it is. We show the glossy sides of us. It's really important for people to share the less glossy sides, to be real, to be out there and to show up and say, "You know what? This is
Yes.
life. This is real. This is reality." And I
And
think
I have, oh,
it's
go
an
ahead.
incredible story.
Thank you. And that is one of the things that is one of my highest values, is to be real. So on social media, I share the good, the bad, and the ugly. I'll share my greatest highs and my greatest wins, but I'm also sharing the deepest, toughest things, like, um one like last quick story is like I went for a year where I didn't have a quote unquote, home. And so I woke up, it was actually in like eclipse season of 2023. And I was like, I was paying all this money for an apartment. And I'm like, it was like the message, like, you've got to, this is you're paying way too much money. You got to get out now. So within 2 weeks of that, I was able to get my lease. Someone else bought, like, kind of came in and took over my lease, and I rented a room. So this was end of May of 2023. I rented a room for 3 months over the summer from someone. And then, um, starting in September, from September to December, I pet sat. So I hopped from place to place, so I didn't have to pay because I couldn't afford a place to live. So I didn't have to pay. I went from place to place, and I had a period of time. I had 3 weeks where I didn't have a pet sitting gig, and I didn't know what I was going to do. And I remember there was a woman I had met at a networking event a couple months before, and she told me, if you ever need a place to stay, call me. And she gave me her card. So the night before I was going to like not have a place to stay, I called her out of the blue. Now, mind you, we had met once, and I said, I need a place. And so I went and lived with her and her family for 3 weeks. People that were complete strangers at first. I went and I lived with her family for 3 weeks. And it was like the most, just the biggest miracles, the most like best part about humanity, taking in this woman who you don't even know. She had her like 3 teenagers, and it was like by the time that ended, I found a winter rental, and then so I moved from the pet sitting to a winter rental from December of last year until end of May of this year. And just in June 1st, I just moved into a 1 bedroom in the town I'm in. So I'm in a like in last year, it was almost a year to the day. I had sold half of my stuff and put the other half in storage. So a couple months ago, I was able to bring all the stuff from out of storage and move into my place where I am now, like in like living. So I shared that on social media.
That's
I love that.
incredible. That's
It's
absolutely incredible.
you have this very unique gift. You've enlightened me very much on the world of,
Mhm.
chiropractic and what it means and all of that, the chiropractic world, which I think is so important. You've educated, right? Which is like,
Mhm.
hey, here's kind of the differences. But at the end of the day, people want to buy or have services from people they know, like, and trust, right? It's like
Yes.
you can have all the accolades in the world, but if there's no feeling heard or likability, then then next. And you really, through your journey, it's like now I almost feel like when people go, "Oh, a chiropractor?" It goes, "No, no, 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 wait, wait, wait. There's different techniques. It really does
Yes.
empower and educate." But also,
Mm.
I just think through your journey on a human level,
Mm.
it's like I want to be around that more.
Yeah.
I want to be around that energy, that spirit, because it's, as Serena and I always preach, it's authentic.
Thank
It's
you.
not living in the dwelling together, because that becomes more of a unhealthy environment, but it's
Yeah.
respecting the life experience. You,
Yes.
like you said, playing the role of therapist, even though, again, that's not your career, but understanding that that's almost like a footnote of what you offer is understanding.
Yes. Yeah.
That is, and I'm sure your patients, or your clients, I should say, that's something you cannot find out there, which is what makes you so uniquely you.
Mm. Thank
Wow,
you.
that's incredible. How do people find you? Like, someone's like, "Hey, Serena and Sarah, Colleen, I need her. I need her in my life."
Oh, they're
How do
gonna
you
find her on our website, fearlessandflawed.com.
Sure, of course. She'll be on fearlessandflawed.com.
Famous.
That's we will promote. That is our value. But if someone says,
Yeah.
"Hey,
Totally.
she keeps talking about her Instagram and I wanna connect to it right now," where do they find
Yes.
you on Insta?
Yeah. So it's at Colleen, so Colleen Norris, N as in Chuck Norris, Norris, wellness. That's my handle on Insta. And then my website, colleennorriswellness.com. Another thing too is that, for obviously for the people local that would be interested in coming in for chiropractic, my office is in Newbury, Mass. But I also do virtual sessions. Now that's not chiropractic, of course, but I do virtual healing sessions for people that have, again, it's nervous system based work. It's not chiropractic, but it's the intersection of what people are struggling with in their health and how past trauma could be impacting that. So that is also an option if someone is not local and they would still like to explore how I may be able to help them.
Wow, you are just such a plethora of, and again, I can't emphasize this enough. You had to go through some of the shit to, like, get to the point where I'm like, I can feel it through the screen. I'm like, "This is the it's Friday," and I'm like, "Just stay on the Zoom call, Colleen. Keep talking to me all weekend long because it's
She
magnetic."
she's given me a sense of, like, how kind everybody is.
Yes, you can feel it.
It's incredible. I mean, you had a complete stranger tell you were worth it, which was your sliding door moment, that moment that
Totally.
pivoted your trajectory. And
Yes.
and then the woman that, the one that you met once at a networking event, housing you for 3 weeks. I love this. This is I would love to hear more stories like this.
Thanks.
100%. And now the fact that you are absolutely smashing it in the business world and incredible in a year.
Thank
I
you.
mean, that's amazing and totally so worth it.
You
So
are
Thank you
the
so
epitome of
much.
fearless and flawed. And you are the epitome.
doesn't sound right to say flawed here though.
No, 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 but here's the thing. I know sometimes if someone says flaw, but to pretend we're not is to not be authentic and to be ignoring the reality of, I don't want to go to someone who's
Right.
so perfect that they can't understand that there's stuff that we all go through. So we're almost in a weird way, we're almost changing that idea of flawed equals bad because it to
Right.
not be flawed would be perfect. To be perfect doesn't exist. To not so then it's kind of
Exactly.
cycle of
And
flawed is
yucky.
yeah, flawed is
Isn't
actually a great thing. Great
Flawed is
thing.
I love flawed.
I'm the first to admit that I'm flawed. There's so many mistakes I've
I love
made,
flawed.
and I don't think it's bad, right? And like you're saying, I think it's human. It's a very
Yeah,
human thing, right? Like we're perfectly imperfect, you
right,
know?
and it makes
I
you
love
very
that.
again, it makes you very likable. I feel like I know you because you represent
Mm.
a piece of me, which is like, I felt that
Mm.
way too.
Yeah,
Interesting. Love that.
I love that.
Colleen, this has been such a fantastic time. Serena, have we missed anything in this journey of Colleen Norris wellness
Oh,
doc
I am sure we have missed loads, and
I
I'm
know
sure
that
there's a lot more, Colleen could tell us. So, but I think
yes,
we're up on time now. Uh,
yeah.
but
You have
Yeah, I
really
feel like we've hit the big points. We've hit the major points.
well, here's the beautiful thing. I think that if anyone feels inspired and really feels like, "Hey, this feels
Mm.
like something they know how to find," that's really our role is to say kind of the big points, who you are, your uniqueness, which I think we have a great understanding if someone should feel compelled to just wanna follow you because, hey, in a world of Instagram, there is still are people on Instagram who are authentic, and so now we
Yes.
feel like we can offer viewers, listeners, as well as ourselves, just another avenue of someone else out there that has a real life experience. So thank you, Colleen, for
Mm.
sharing.
and wouldn't it
Yeah.
and wouldn't it be wonderful if there was somebody out there that listened to this and thought, "You know what? I'm in a similar place to that. I'm
Yeah.
worth it."
Yeah.
And life-changing moment. I
And
mean,
Awesome.
and
that would
that's
be
why I share them. That's why I share, of course, like, do I love being out here sharing, like, "I went to a voluntary crisis center." You know what I mean? It's like I share these deeply personal moments with the intention of if there's one person that gets something out of hearing that story, that I'm doing exactly what I'm meant to do.
Well, I'm the one person. You yeah, please. I got this. And I've talked to you before. I mean, to be very transparent, we have spoken before the podcast just to do intros. And I have said this to Serena the minute we've ended the call. I'm like, wow. That's always what I say. Wow. I feel it.
Aw.
And I know Serena feels the same. Wow. Like if she can do it, this is always my feeling. Well, if Colleen can do it, Why can't I do it? Like that feeling of she is me,
Exactly.
I am her.
Right.
There
I'm not special. I'm not, you know what I'm saying? Like, like, I don't have some
You are.
superhuman.
Wow.
Well, yes. Yes. And I don't have some superhuman thing. You know what I mean? Like, it's just,
Yeah.
yeah, we all are capable of these things.
Amazing. It has been such a treat chatting with you. We will have all your info on our website if people want to reach out, but thank you for sharing your story. It is so the
Mm.
essence of everything we like to represent here: strong, fearless, picking yourself back up. And again, not pretending that you're not going to have bad days, but in your own words, acknowledging and then
Yes.
keeping it moving. And that, if
Exactly.
nothing else, I think is kind of the aura of what you represent is acknowledging, keeping it moving. Sunnier days are ahead, and you are living proof of that.
Thank
So,
you so much.
just throw my pen around there. Just before we finish, what we try to do is ask our guest a question for the next guest. You don't know who the next guest is, don't know anything about them. What
Okay.
question would you want to ask another fearless and flawed female?
Ooh. Mm.
Just to wrap it up.
Mm. Oh my gosh.
Putting you on the spot here. So you
I know, right? What What do you feel is a time in your life that defined your greatest strength?
Write it down, Serena, because we ask the question
Uh,
and then we forget to write it down, and then we're like, "What?"
and that's a great question. Feel a time in your life that
Mhm. That's
that
oh,
you
numb me out
felt
here.
your greatest strength.
what your greatest strength. Mm. And there's always a story behind that question. Colleen, you
Yeah.
have done us well. You have done us
Oh,
good.
good. Okay, good. I was feeling
Great
pressure. I was like,
question.
"Oh my god, I gotta come up with something good."
No, you every now and then someone will say a question that's like, "Tell us your tell me about your journey." And I'm like, "No, that can't be the question. That's the whole point of the podcast." And you
Yeah, yeah,
have
yeah. Yeah.
like a question with it. That is wonderful. We will ask that to our
Awesome.
next fearless and flawed guest. Colleen, thank you for
Perfect.
spending your Friday with us and for just sharing your story.
Thank you so much. This has been amazing. I am so grateful to be here.